In this corner of Destiny 2, our community manager DMGO4 asked the question, what's one piece of advice you'd give to a brand new Destiny Guardian if you were to meet them in the Cosmodrome? Well, I'd be out here looking like Morpheus, giving the Kindergardians a speech. I'd be like, you come to me for advice? This is your last chance. There's no turning back. In my hand are 2 pills. You take the blue pill. You play at your own pace, enjoy the new stuff, buy the season passes, and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, and I show you just how deep the Hellmouth goes. Funny enough, this was a situation I was put in recently when my MMO friends needed more games to play. They asked me what I thought about Destiny 2. I hate answering this question because I know how biased my answer is. I have 10,000 hours in PvP, let alone the series in general. If I didn't love the game, I'd quit. That's not entirely accurate though, because Destiny goes through many eras and identity crisis. When they change or reduce the things I like, or increase the things I dislike, then I do quit. Obviously, there is a conflict of interest of being a content creator where I'm essentially paid to cover Destiny topics and content. I find myself on one of 2 spectrums for my playtime. If the game's PvP balance is intrinsically enjoyable, then I play nearly all day every day with no fear of burnout. If the game is not intrinsically enjoyable to play, then I cover the new content once, state my discontent, then bounce to a different game until Destiny returns to a good state. I mentioned eras and identity crisis. An example of an era is Vanilla Destiny 2, where the game simplified combat by removing always available one-hit kill weapons and reducing ability potency and frequency, while also adding objective modes to PvP and balancing the game speed to match the network speed. This was my most played era for good reason. The amount of unearned random chance deaths to things that were out of your control were minimal. The better player usually won. Unfortunately, PvP balance came at the expense of overall game identity. PvE was a husk of its former self, where the player couldn't express progression with player power or build diversity and depth, not to mention some players only played for quote-unquote something to grind for, which meant that they wanted the possibility of getting a snowflake ultra rare drop to flex on people. Keep in mind that Destiny never had trading. My least played era was when they announced a loot system called Sunsetting, which meant that all your gear and builds had an expiration date on a 1-year cycle. To a veteran MMO player, this is a common system to curb power creep and to freshen the game experience and to artificially reset the market to give new players a chance to break in. But in other MMOs, loot is more of a stat stick and less of a build-reliant staple, not to mention trading, crafting, and other systems to guarantee progression. Keep in mind that obtaining loot was extremely random to the point that start-to-finish build crafting could be a 200-hour endeavor easily. When they first announced Sunsetting, I put into action a plan to minimize my playtime by making a very generic yet powerful build to carry me through 1 year of content coverage. To contrast that, I normally make multiple eccentric builds for no reason other than they're fun to play. For the record, if Bungie simultaneously announced trading, a competitive curated PvP sandbox, and deterministic routes to specific loot, then I would have been a major fan of Sunsetting. Since they couldn't deliver on the necessary systems to sweeten the idea of sunsetting, the community showed absolute disdain for Sunsetting, and the idea was aborted shortly after. Today's era features the best build crafting we've ever had at the expense of mostly dormant PvP focus and drip-fed seasonal PvE content. This is the first era where we've experienced the content vault where they cycle in and out new and old content to keep the game size reasonable. With all this being said, let's circle back to my MMO friends asking me about what I think about Destiny 2. But let's modify the question. Why do I play Destiny 2? Answer. You know those badass moments in anime where a character powers up, discovers a new technique, or reveals that inner monologue on how they just outsmarted somebody in a fight? Destiny gives you those moments on a silver platter, and even more so when you study the game to the extent that you can be both a godslayer in PvE and PvP. I enjoy Destiny the most when my Guardian is weak because it makes the playmaking dynamic more engaging and execution heavy. When everyone is powerful, the game stalls because everyone's capable of impactfully throwing nukes at each other and also capable of aiming in the general direction of a health bar with a one-hit kill weapon. I started playing Destiny because I was obsessed with two games back in the day, Halo for PvP and Phantasy Star Online for PvE. Destiny seemed like the spiritual fusion of both of those games. It had the PvP gun feel of Halo with the setting and backbone of PSO. I could essentially kill a raid boss, wear his ass as a hat, and get some special loadout synergy for doing so, let alone spending the hours to master said synergy to outplay some other crazy combination. That was the lure of Destiny to me. It took great elements of both games, but as I've already mentioned, certain eras hit the right mix to me. Other eras felt like a monkey's paw wish in a sea of identity crisis. That's the thing about Destiny 2, it cycles through eras that appeal to the various interests of different Destiny players. So why do I play Destiny 2? Because the game has gone full circle on multiple occasions and through different leadership, it seemingly bends to the will of one party complaining, just to bend again to the opposite 6 months later. It's had ample opportunities to learn from mistakes and to deliver the ultimate version of Destiny that can appeal to most. It may have taken 7 years and it might take a year or two to realize it, but I'm confident that Destiny has decided on its identity. I used to play a different game series, the Battlefield series, which lived by the tagline, "Only in Battlefield," and I couldn't have said it better myself. There really were PvP situations that only happened in Battlefield. I remember losing a dogfight in a jet and having to eject out and parachute down, and I look up and see my jet explode above me. Meanwhile, an attack helicopter swoops in to clean me up out of the air. I thought it was all over. But then, my damaged jet fell on top of the helicopter, blew it up, saving me, allowing me to safely parachute down and plant some C4 on an unsuspecting tank. Destiny's original tagline was, "Become Legend." While most ignored that sentiment, some ran with it. There were potentially thousands of effective permutations of weapon, armor, class, and team combinations. Some players are known specifically for being adept with a particular build. Take yesterday for instance. I saw a guy in PvP with 30,000 sidearm kills on some basic sidearm. Or so I thought. I got dump trucked in duels by that sidearm repeatedly. I lost so many duels that I kept challenging that player so I could have a chance to reverse engineer what the hell he was doing to best me. Turns out that player stacked so many perks on a gun that it made it feel recoilless and pushed out the range. They combined it with an armor mod that increased sidearm damage for landing double kills, and used a terrible exotic armor piece called the Mechaneer's Trick Sleeves, which grants bonus damage if critically wounded. So, since the sidearm had a full auto perk, he would swap cancel the gun while holding down the trigger mid-gunfight to stack up the damage bonus and outgun me. So, to summarize, this player used every conceivable bonus synergy with a weak weapon to turn it into this menacing dueler. Out of the thousands of generic hand cannon speed boot players, in my eyes, this sidearm player became legendary. I wanted to try his build and see if I could do something cool with it too. So, in my opinion, Destiny 2 is moving towards a place where more players embrace this idea of refining and mastering a build in both PvE and PvP. The biggest caveat to this is that for some reason Destiny's loot economy has countermeasures in place as if trading exists, but it doesn't. So there exists this arbitrary length of time grind for that missing piece of the build with no way to fully guarantee it. That's the biggest letdown of Destiny 2. One could say it's ironic that you have to roll with whatever the game gives you, your destiny of sorts, but at the same time, you evolve as a player and find your niche and proclivities. When all the pieces fall into place, and you feel that moment of reaching Super Saiyan for the first time, or drop the weights like Rock Lee, and as cringe as some may think that is the moment that you became legend and realized your destiny. That is why I play the game. I'm hoping that in years to come, Bungie lets us play with purpose rather than hindering progress artificially. I hope that they trust in their ability to design a game and unify in a vision that takes us 2 steps forward most of the time. Let me get my Morpheus impression on again. So now that you know the truth, Kindergarten. Nah, screw the Morpheus impression, I'm just saying this from the heart. So, now that you know the truth, Kindergarten, here is your piece of advice. Your destiny is exactly that. Yours. Embrace what you enjoy. Shatter old plateaus. Strive to reach new ceilings. To become legend, it all starts with taking an L. Or so you thought. Remember, no mom spaghetti here. They are more shook than I am. And now I go for the zone. The invis doesn't matter here. I just need the shot to connect. Which is up, Bo. I win. Good job, team.